And we're live. There we go. There's always this moment, friends, where it seems like we've run out of time, but we haven't gone live yet. Anyway, it's great to see you again. I'm Karen Lynch, as you know. And as you can also see, Lenny Murphy is not with us today. We are delighted to have a guest co-host. I'm going to let him introduce himself to you, but, coming from Luna, Rick Candelaria, thank you so much for joining us as your first stint as a guest host on the exchange, hopefully not your last. Why don't you tell the world a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Karen, for having me. I'm excited to talk about all the cool stuff that's going on in our industry. So, a little bit about me. Obviously, my name is Rick, as you can see. I am a marketing research lifer. So, I've been in the business now for 25 plus years. Uh, if you want to know the details, you can always look me up on LinkedIn. Currently at Taluna, I have a dual role. So, I lead our solutions team, but also on the innovation team. So as part of that group, we are, ideating, developing, testing, validating our AI solutions and our tools. And personally, AI and marketing research is not necessarily new for me. I've been involved in that for probably about 8 years now. So long before the boom of language models kind of have changed a lot of our world.
Yeah, that's so funny that you say you're a lifer because I am as well. And I literally I started in this industry in 1991, which like every time I think through that, I'm one of those people that has a career market research or insights professional. So we're in that
Well,
club together. Who knew?
yes, we are. Well, what's interesting too is being that like we've seen some changes that go on
Yeah,
in the industry, right? Like, 10 years about after you started, then you saw the shift to online. And I think, a lot of what we're going to talk about today is probably like some of these things we've kind of seen before,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. And that's the thing about this is we've seen some of this before, but it has new weight,
But
I think, on the industry right now, right? It's taking on like an omnipresence for
yeah,
us because we're in the disruption. And I think that when the shift to online happened, it was more excitement. And I think right now there's excitement, yes, but also some trepidation. So I'd love to stay with the excitement. And I know you're on board. So we're going to get into our first
yeah.
story. Longtime listeners will know that Lenny and I, we often start these episodes out with, like the show me the money concept, like who's getting funded, because for our audience, knowing who's getting funded shows where some of the industry energy is, right? So there's two big money moves this week that we're going to talk about. First one is a company called BluePill, which you probably haven't heard of. It's new this year. Raised $6 million in seed funding for digital twin-based predictions of consumer reactions. And Kit Dewan, he's the founder and CEO of BluePill. It's not his first rodeo as an entrepreneur. Really interesting. You should probably look him up on LinkedIn. Not that we have that here, although maybe Carly can find it now. But he quotes in the press release that we'll share. He said the 140 billion market research industry is broken. He saw that when he was at Amazon, and he wanted to kind of fill a gap. And says, these AI consumers are uncovering motivations instantly, for that matter. So super interesting to think about what he's building, which is like an AI first platform with digital twins. And I know you have something to say about this. So go ahead, jump right
Oh,
in.
oh yeah. I mean, this is, I think, one of the biggest talking points now are, digital twins, synthetic personas. Some people kind of interchange those, even though they're different. But this is an area I think that's going to really revolutionize kind of what we do and how we do it.
Yeah,
And as you were talking about earlier, I think, the interesting thing is the speed at which this is coming to happen.
yeah,
It's coming, I think, quicker than a lot of people anticipated. They knew it was coming,
yeah.
but the speed of adoption is going to be incredibly fast.
Yeah. And don't you think, I mean, for a new player like this, the speed of building a company, I think, is also important. We talk week after week, we talk about some of these new players to the industry, people that are like, hey, I'm going to start up a company in the market research space using
Yep.
AI, very quick to get to market with the idea that hits them. And I think that is also unusual for the times that we're in.
It is. Yeah. I think we're seeing a lot more, tech influence and tech
Yeah.
companies,
Yeah.
kind of, I guess being the lifer, I can say infiltrate, in some ways. But it's good, seeing kind of all that interest in the investment in the space,
Yeah.
which is the positive spin on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think what's also, oh, go
Yeah.
ahead,
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, you go.
No,
You go.
I was gonna say what I also found interesting in the release was the reference I think that that he made to the fact that thousands of AI consumers built on real world data can give a more accurate picture than any single focus group,
Yeah.
because you start to get into that idea of accuracy and validation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think this is where I want to take a pause and tap your expertise because you know a thing or two about persona products. Um, Talk to me a little bit about what your experience is with them there at Luna and what your personal point of view is on them because they're still controversial in the industry.
Oh yeah, yeah, really controversial. I think for us, what we've learned, and we launched kind of our persona solution back in, gosh, March, April this year, and so we're still kind of in the infancy, and everyone is in a lot of ways. I think what we found is you have to be transparent with what you can and can't do with them.
Yeah,
We have deployed them for certain things, but not everything, because
yeah,
again, you need to do the validation to make sure
yeah,
you're comfortable with what you're getting. you know what's interesting though is again, to back to his reference on better than a one focus group, we've actually had a couple clients look at the data from personas and make the claim that they felt it was actually more representative than the human data
mm,
because of other information that they're seeing and trends that they're seeing. So
yeah.
I'm not saying that it's always better data, but it's interesting.
Well, and I think the key is that validation, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
and I remember saying this last year, like, we entered a phase of, go ahead and experiment, make sure you're validating, like, like, do both right now, and it might be more expensive to kind of to run concurrent paths, but you absolutely have to, be convicted with what you're discovering, and that may change over time. It might be more convicting down the road, but for right now, that validation is key.
Yep.
Um, let's segue into this next kind of money grab, right? This company Verve Labs raised 8.5 million in Series A funding. Again, like these people are getting millions of dollars for what they're doing, but this is an AI powered video feedback platform. And I think it's interesting because we're still kind of going after the elusive, um, trying to understand human beings, right, in ways that they are not necessarily able to articulate in person. So, the founder here is saying, I started Verve Labs because I kept seeing the same problem, brands making massive decisions based on static data that didn't really reflect who people are. Tell me your 2 cents on kind of AI video feedback. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think I want to look at the underlying technology because I think what they're doing, it's really interesting, is in addition to like synthetic data and synthetic personas, the other area that I think is really poised for explosion is conversational AI, and that's
Mm,
kind of at the heart of it. And I think
yeah,
we're going to probably talk about that in a few different instances
yeah,
as during this time, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's, I think, the real interesting thing about what they're doing and how they're kind of making changes to how you interact with research.
Right, right. And I think that interaction with research is actually like, I was talking in the beginning about that excitement. Like,
Yeah,
think about how exciting that is. Like, it's pretty cool, all of the things that we are capable of doing right now, as long as people squash the fear and uncertainty and ambiguity. Like, you'll love it when
yeah,
people are kind of excited about what's happening.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, it all goes back to efficiency and scope. If you think about and then this is kind of alluded to in their press release, it's if you think about the amount of content that is now being generated through Gen AI tools that
Yeah,
companies have, need different ways to help them kind of process all that information and weed through it and decide and make.
yeah.
And so all of these tools are really helping, or are needed because of other Gen AI tools that are being leveraged by companies now.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and we'll talk more about that Gen AI stuff, but let's just take a pause and talk about a new agency that if you again kind of track anything in the industry that has to do with the future, and have heard of futurist Ari Popper, who has now co-founded. I mean, it just cracks me up and gives me pause, which we'll talk about in a minute, but co-founded Dreamport AI, which is an agency focused on building AI agents. So lots of industry expertise. This kind of hit me and I'm like, of course that's what he's doing now. And as a futurist, that's where I want people to pay attention. Like this is the future if it's not clear as day to everybody else. But then we find out yesterday you know him. So tell me your 2 cents on Ari and what he's doing.
Yeah. So this is again, this goes way back, way back to old Milmer Brown days. I worked with Ari, and what's interesting is Ari thinks about things from a very different perspective.
Yeah.
Like his mind works very differently. So if you look at a lot of the stuff he's been involved in, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's really amazing to hear him think about like how he thinks about problems, solutions, clients, pain points. So I think it's really interesting to see what their take will be on kind of this agent and agentic system world.
Yeah.
That so there, I don't know if your search skills were better than mine, but I couldn't find a lot of information about what they're doing.
I
But
know. I
interesting
know.
to
You just
see what
log
they're
in
doing.
and the site is live and you have to kind of, it's like, here it is, site's live. And it's like, all
Yeah.
right, so which even that is very interesting to me because anyway, because it's out there, he's putting it out there. And yeah, so yeah, give us feedback if you're checking out what he's up to, because I think it's pretty cool. Have you done agentic work? Are you guys going down that path?
Yeah, so we launched our agentic system like earlier in the year.
Yeah.
So and it's funny because at that point in time there weren't as many people talking about it. I think tech pundits and journalists actually, some of them predicted like 2025 was going to be the year of agentic, and they need to pat themselves on the back because they nailed it.
Yeah.
But at that point in time when we were talking with clients about it, it was new to them.
Yeah.
But fast forward about 8 months now,
Yeah.
clients have moved really quickly and they're talking about building their own agentic systems
Yeah.
internally and changing their workflows. So now it's much more common, to be talking about these things.
Yeah. And the tools for a professional, kind of who is not part of a big enterprise organization, right? The tools for a professional that allow us to do things like that as well are just getting more and more common. Like you might be relying on, OpenAI system, and now Gemini's, got it built right into the Google ecosystem, and our workflows are for at an individual level are just getting more and more agentic as well, which is, for me, really neat to see, because that's who I am, an early adopter of all this stuff, and I love it.
Yeah.
Other people, it's probably like, oh shoot, now I really got to get into this space too. But I think it's going back to kind of the topic at hand. I think it's pretty impressive when a futurist is showing us, this is such an important part of our future. I'm gonna start a new business about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Pay attention, y'all. Pay attention. So, if you're gleaning that today is a lot of AI, you're right. The stories in the last 2 weeks are largely AI. But you also know that I love to talk about kind of AI with the consumer in mind, right? So there's a couple of behavioral shifts happening based on consumers and AI that I'd love to talk about with you, Rick. Largely,
Yep.
there were plenty of articles that showed up in my feed. I think we've got 2 going that's talking about holiday shopping. Started with kind of the Thanksgiving weekend here in the U.S., but retailers are rolling out, AI shopping assists. We've talked about this before. We just have more and more proof that that's happening, and kind of Gen Z being a big part of that. So, kind of, what's your take on what's happening from a consumer behavior standpoint and what the implications are for the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you have to look at what some of these companies are doing, and honestly, some of them have actually been doing this work for a long time. It just wasn't as noticeable and it wasn't talked about.
Yeah.
But some of these retail companies, for 10 years, they've been using systems to help them, sell ultimately more things to people. I think
Yeah.
what's interesting in the articles you're talking about is it's really about how do we make it easier for the consumer to buy, really, you
Yeah.
know? And for me, what I took out of it was we as an industry need to think about that as well. Like from the supplier vendor side, how do we make it easier for our clients to buy in this new, AI world?
Mm-hmm. That is such a good point. I'm so glad you're making it. It's easy to see that the consumer has a need
Yeah.
Like, oh, I need to find this, finding a personal example. I need to find this bracelet that my daughter wants, for example. It's sold out. Can ChatGPT help me find it somewhere else? That kind of thing. That's literally a real life example that happened this week in our household. But then when you think about that, I need a survey provider, and the one I've been using is too expensive. Help me find somebody else, right? In that sort of thinking. So it's going to be very interesting to see how purchase decisions are made, even at a B2B level, learning and thinking about what's happening at a personal level. So cool point.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You just mentioned, like, oh, going to ChatGPT, and we know that a lot of people are actually shifting behaviors and almost using ChatGPT as their search engine,
Yeah.
instead of Google. So, and how does that impact behavior and
Yeah.
the environment? And
Yeah. Well, and for the brands listening, product discovery, right? So we have two other articles that popped up this week about product discovery, and not just kind of if you shop on Amazon. This time of year, I'm in Amazon a lot, Rick. I hate to admit it, but I don't want to be necessarily. However, it's just so convenient. And, they have this Rufus who's giving me ideas and answering questions as an LLM would about, Amazon products or what might be in there. So, that's kind of boosting conversion within the Amazon ecosystem. But OpenAI is testing search ads in ChatGPT. So the platforms themselves are like, yeah, we're not going to leave this we're not going to leave this up to others. We're
yeah,
going to integrate it right in. What do you think?
yeah. I mean, well, it's all about following where the money is, right? And if you think about, serving ads, like there's big business there, and especially if they're seeing this is how people are using the tool, it
Yeah.
kind of makes an a natural segue into that space for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Show me the money, right?
Exactly.
That's what we're
Yeah.
here to talk about today. So Rick, you're right
Yeah.
on board. Thank you so much.
And for the record, I think almost everyone is like in with you with the Amazon. In fact, today my wife, when she was leaving, she went by the front door and said, "Oh, look, there's Amazon packages." Like she was surprised because they were the stuff she ordered. It's like,
I don't know why it's a surprise. I don't know why
yeah,
it's because sometimes they deliver though at like 4 a.m.
yeah,
They're like sometimes you do wake up to them.
yeah.
It's real this time of year, for sure. Anyway, it's probably a whole nother conversation to have about shopping local versus shopping, global, but just can't be
Yep.
convenience. Anyway, I think it's good to have these conversations and talking about the brands and this piece that was published in Payments about what Unilever is up to. I think it's really important to talk about because um, they are scaling AI across their organization, right? But they're using it in product development and they are talking about it in this article. How are they using this for product development? How are they using it for marketing? All of that,
Mhm.
including insights work. It is in this piece. So it's kind of my call to action for brands. You got to learn from Unilever. You got to learn from learn from B&G, learn from
Yep.
Mondelez. Like, who are you learning from? We're always learning from the behemoths in the CPG space. And I'm sure you probably have some inside information you can't share with us. Your client is huge, Luna. But what's your take on what brands are doing right now in this space? Because they're not shying away anymore.
No, no, they're not. And I mean, you mentioned, a company like Unilever, and yeah, we do a lot of work with them. And I think historically they've been a company that has really pushed the industry, right?
Yeah,
Pushed agencies like ours to become more innovative, do things, quicker, more efficiently. And a lot of what's been developed over the years has been because of, companies like Unilever. So, I think, definitely they're a company to look to see, okay, what are they doing? What's interesting in the announcement, though, that is the wide range of what they're using. It's almost across the business,
yeah,
really.
yeah.
And they've really pushed this, not just to certain, groups. It's across their organization.
Yeah. Yeah, really leading the charge there. And I there was a time when maybe it was a year ago even, and Lenny and I were talking on the show and we were saying, you know, they are slow. The brands are slow to adopt. They're looking for their partners to lead the
Hmm.
way here, right? They don't know what they don't know yet, but they have caught up, obviously. So
Yes.
they are now going to be seeking partners who are at least at their level. So I think that's also really important to point out to folks that are listening. Like, they are no longer passive. They are actively engaging.
Yes, and the things that they're doing are going to really impact how we operate as a business. So,
Yeah.
like, it's no longer like, here's what we have. Do you want it? We're going to
Yeah.
have to think more about like how we integrate into what they're doing and what they
Yeah.
need and what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Good pro tip there. Like, it's a mindset shift, right? So for all of the other, other kind of suppliers that are listening in, like you have to have this mindset shift, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, So, all right, here's another product, kind of a poor segue on my part, but I really do want to talk about this tool. So, conversational AI. We're going there for a minute. So, to your point, we weren't done with that topic when it first came up, and here we go. But Claude, Anthropic, Anthropic's product, launched something called Interviewer this week, a tool that was automating large scale qualitative interviews. So of course it comes in front of me. Rick, I don't even know if you know my history as a qualitative researcher. My first job in the 90s was at a qualitative shop, and that's where I have lived for most of my career. So I was really into this, right? So it gets put in front of me. They've piloted with 1250 professionals across workforce, whether it's creatives or scientists, professionals like myself, with a pop-up interview when you log into the site. So of course I'm going to check it out.
Yeah.
And they're releasing the data publicly, so you can kind of read the responses on the dashboard once you've done it. Um, Fascinating to think about the trickle down implications of this. Like, okay, Claude just conducted an interview and they're making the findings available to the general public. Like, what does that mean for our space in so many levels? There's so many places we can go with this one.
Yeah.
Where do you want to
Yeah.
start?
Well, I actually wanted to start because you actually tried it out, right? So I want to hear your experience. Like, what was your experience like going through that? Good points, bad points?
Yeah, the thing about it is now my my admittedly, right? I'm a qualitative researcher. I talked to people for, the first 30 years of my career. Um, I talked to people for a living, face to face, online, but it was all kind of verbal
Mhm.
conversation. In-home interviews, yes, there was observation there, but it was much, um, much more heavily, obviously focused on verbal conversations. Yes, there was videos to analyze and all that, but this was something that I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. I've been intrigued when I've seen um, qual conversations unfold this way.
Yep.
Virtual moderating, chat bots. They're always intriguing to me, and I'm like, okay, but the suspicion has always been for me that I was going to run into poor prompting or probing after the
Yep.
that was my hunch was, well, how could they possibly pick up on what exactly to probe on? Because that's a value that qualitative researchers bring to the table. Um, I was surprised at how well the AI probed with what I said. The conversation flowed. It felt organic. Um, and actually, it took me back because it paraphrased very well. So I would type something in and it would sort of say, thinking about how you just said this, and it would word it
Yeah.
slightly differently, but I'm like, that's exactly how moderator would have handled
Right.
that. How I might have handled that as a moderator. I would paraphrase and then probe for follow up. It did a great job. And so therefore my time with the platform was smooth. And I don't want to say I didn't want it to end, but I wasn't hating it. Take that for what it's worth.
Excuse me. At
I have
any point,
confidence in the tech. I don't know what to do with how I feel about it.
at any point, did you stop thinking about the fact that you were not talking to an actual human?
That's a very interesting question. I love. That when I say it was really organic, at some point it did not feel robotic at all.
Mhm.
It felt like there could have been another person that was typing back or voice to text or something. It did not feel like a machine doing the conversation. It was well trained. Um, yeah, surprisingly interesting. So anxious for other people to check this out. feel free to, again, email us, exchange at greenbook.org, and let me know what you're thinking, because I didn't have a problem with it. Anyway, I know that you probably have some thoughts about it experientially. You've played in this space. So what do you think based on what I just shared?
No, I mean, I think it's great to hear that that's your experience. I think, some of the earlier versions of these tools felt a little more clunky, right? Like you can
Yeah,
almost tell the difference between, the human approach versus this, but they're
yeah,
getting much better.
yeah,
And what we've seen, because we've integrated conversational AI into our platform,
yeah,
and it does a really good job of probing,
yeah,
and doing so in a very personal way that
yeah,
doesn't feel forced.
yeah,
And that ultimately, what we find is it helps give us much richer information,
yeah,
than because we know people sometimes are limited in what they volunteer. So you kind of need to pull it out of them.
yeah, yeah. And also, the probing was done, and this is for anybody out there who has a conversational AI platform, check yours out. The probing was done in such a way that not only did it kind of solicit from me another kind of open end probe, but I wasn't typing short, succinct answers. I was giving, I don't want to say full sentences necessarily, but complete thoughts. I was
Hmm.
interacting with it in such a way that that would be our hope, right? There was no like, yes or sure. I did not type in succinct answers. Now, maybe that's me. I don't know. I think it was the way the questions were um, were worded, that they were definitely, open-ended questions that were very thought-provoking, and I wanted to answer them. Yeah,
I
that's
I don't think it's just you. Based on our work too, we have seen it. When the probes are good,
yeah,
you're able to pull more out of people, and they're more willing to kind of divulge more information.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, not just you.
Yeah, so, so there's good to come from this technology. Again, I'm sure there's qualitative researchers that are probably like, "Karen, what are you doing?" But that's a different conversation to help with their future, with their careers and what's
Yeah.
happening. There's a place for that as well. I'm never gonna not say that. There's a place for different types of conversation. But I do want to talk about the flip side, because what also came out this week were several kind of research pieces, kind of peer-reviewed work, if you will, about the AI threats to the industry as a whole as well. So just when we're exploring all of these great opportunities, guess what? We got to do that SWOT analysis, because there are also real threats coming up. And anyway, so these pieces, again, I'm not going to list them all individually, but vision enabled agents are, auto completing surveys. There's kind of some traps that are built in that could potentially detect what's happening in the world of fraud. Talk to me about what you're seeing and steps that people can take. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think you need to make sure that your partners are doing everything they can to get
Yeah,
as high quality data as they can, and
yeah,
doing the cleaning. And we know that this has been part of our industry for a long time. I think
yeah,
it's becoming more prominent,
yeah,
in terms of its use.
yeah,
And there's a lot of technology that goes into trying to stop these.
yeah,
So, if you go to like conferences today, one of the things I notice is, 98% are talking about AI, and then the other 2% are talking about data quality.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
still important, and you need to make sure that, companies are doing what they can to ensure that the information we're getting from those humans is actually human.
Yeah, is actually humans. And I think that's the big concern, right? Is, we're talking about how much better and stronger the conversational AI is getting, and the
Yep.
ability to have kind of quality scale interviews. If that technology is getting better, then it stands to reason that the fraudulent technology is getting better also. Like we're
Yeah.
not getting one, not the other. Like it's not like the fraudsters or the bots are going to get dumbed down while our tech is getting better. That's not how this works, right? So yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
continue that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Our quality team spends a lot of time, trying to identify the new trends that they're seeing, from, the we call it the bad bots,
Yeah,
because it's funny because now we are creating good bots. If you think about personas or digital twins,
Yeah.
those are the good survey takers, but we need to keep out, the fraudulent ones.
Yeah. Yes, I love that there's good bots and bad bots. Of course, of course.
Yeah.
That's such a simple way of talking about a really complicated issue. Um, so yeah, there's another piece. These last few pieces, which we wrap up our show all the time with, are just kind of like, you can read more if you're interested in this because they're sort of adjacent to the industry. But in this AI world, what have you heard about the AI bubble? Is it a bubble that's about to pop? This AI boom, is it about to go away? Are we about to see a decline? What is your point of view on that? Because then we'll tell you what PitchBook says.
um, it depends on how we define the bubble, I think. I
Mhm.
don't think anything AI related is going to go away. We've seen too many benefits in terms of speed and efficiency, and it's
Yeah,
addressing a lot of the things that clients have been asking from us for years.
yeah,
So, and once you get something that's high quality and fast,
yeah.
you're not going to be able to take it away. So I do think it's going to continue.
Yeah, and you can go to this oh my gosh, pitch book piece. Partly's sharing the link about it. It's what's in there is basically like, yeah, the technology is not going anywhere. Will the funding slow down? I think is the frame of reference for this,
Yeah.
and it maybe
Yeah.
not our industry though. That was sort of my 2 cents on this. Is I'm like, okay, maybe the funding for some of the large platforms out there, maybe that funding will start to slow. But there are going to be cases where they're going to. What was the stat about how big the industry is? It's a $140 billion industry that we're in, or something like that's the number that I shared earlier. Is the funding in this industry going to slow down? I'm not sure. I just don't
Yeah.
know if it will.
Yeah. Well, think about what we talked about earlier, which is all the new tech companies coming in, right? So, there's new ideas and, you have futurists, getting into the space. So, I don't see it changing, but again, it all depends on, I think, how our industry evolves, and not only just the new tech companies, but some of those legacy, big companies, and everyone's going to need to evolve and change.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Great segue into kind of research ops, right? So evolve and change either in what you offer, but also in how you do business. So User Interviews published their state of research ops in 2025, showing how AI has gone from kind of just being very tactical and practical to now some strategic work, and everything's in there. So if you're in research ops and you're listening in, Carly is going to share that download for you to check out that state of research ops report. How have you seen research ops changing?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's about efficiency, right? It's enabling to do things quicker, and we like to focus on enabling people to do more of what they're good at, which is actually thinking about the client's problems and issues, and
Yeah,
how do you answer those questions. So it's
yeah.
taking away some of that, kind of grunt work, if you will,
Grunt
really,
work, take away the grunt work. Keyword thinking, which is kind of the lead into the very last piece that we're going to share this week, which is a thought piece, right? It's kind of a blog post from Every, which is think first, AI second. And I think that's the cautionary tale that you and I would both tell to people, right? So how to keep your cognitive edge while you're moving ahead with using AI tools yourself and across your operations. Do the thinking first, and say, how might I use AI to make this more efficient? Or, again, do the thinking first and then work your prompts to meet your needs based on what you've thought. But the way to stay sharp instead of experiencing some of the cognitive decline that's been in the news lately, think first, AI second. So that's kind of what I want to
yes.
leave people with. You want to build on that, or debunk me,
And
Rick?
no, I don't debunk at all. I mean, I think, we talked about, like, when we grew up in the industry, you learned certain things. And so I think one of the challenges is if you don't have the frame of reference to question what you're getting back, because you
Yeah,
can't just assume that what you're getting back is accurate or good, so
yeah,
you need to have that kind of query and pushback.
yeah. And as you're building things, if you are kind of internally and you're building things, you must do the testing, the quality testing, is a big deal, to make sure that what you're getting back is actually accurate. Like, don't just put something out there because you think you should. You have to make sure that what you're putting out there is high quality too. So again, the thinking skills aren't going anywhere. And I think, oh my gosh, I didn't even make it in here. My husband, just so you know, Rick, he happens to be in change management at the organizational enterprise level. And he just put something out there about like, we are actually not losing jobs right now. People are just being able to do the work that's been kind of placed upon them.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more efficiency, and it is making smart people kind of smarter. Anyway, it's an interesting time. If you are paying attention to this, you're probably ahead of the curve, right? Because people listening are people that care and are trying to, learn from folks like yourself week after week. So, yeah.
Well, it was interesting in one of the articles that we had talked about was, the different perspectives that different people have depending on their jobs. And, there's the pessimist and there's optimist. And, you can see the people with optimism, the way that they're leaning into this and figuring out, how do I learn and be ready for what's coming and the change?
Yeah. Instead of the other person who's it's like, if we're on that roller coaster, there's those people that go to the downturn and they say, this is the time to get your hands up and just go for the ride, because it is you're going down that hill no matter what.
Yep.
I just
Exactly.
Rick, what fun. Our time is practically up. I hope you enjoyed your first time as a co-host.
This was great. Thank you. I loved having these conversations. I think they're important too for our industry. So
yeah,
it's good to be involved.
Thank you. And I'm so glad. And thank you not just for you for joining me, but also to, your entire organization for sponsoring this episode. Really, I just appreciate it. It's great fun to chat with you. And anyway, and we have so much appreciation for what you're doing to make it happen. So thank you. And to everybody else listening, thanks so much for being here. Lenny and I will see you next week. And I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Rick. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.